everyone. This is the show where I help high-achieving women push their limits, dominate their mindset, and take action towards their goals. It's about to get real, so buckle up and brace for impact. My name is Ashleigh Mayfield, and I am the high-achieving woman. Hey everybody, what is up? So excited. Today we're going to talk about know your gift, about knowing your gift. This is all about self-awareness today. One of my absolute passions is self-awareness. I don't even know if that's passion, but one thing you'll hear me say it over and over throughout the High Achieving Woman podcast, that self-awareness is the number one quality in a leader. If you don't understand who you are, you don't understand why you think the way you think, why you move the way you move, why you act the way you act, you will be capped at how much you can understand other people. And so self-awareness, it's this understanding that there's like a limitless supply of understanding yourself. There are multiple layers. You are a multifaceted, multi-layered human being, and there's always going to be another level of self-discovery. And so with that being said, I always get really, really excited whenever I can talk about self-awareness and I can talk about like what your gifts are. I think that's one of the greatest things about self-awareness. When you look at, like, you guys know I'm really passionate about the color personality, okay? That is a tool that I believe that Jesus allowed me to open up my eyes and see, because I think it's so important that we understand our personalities. And it's something I've been passionate about since I was a kid. Before I even understood Jesus, I remember getting like the Teeny Bop magazines once a month and flipping to the back and looking at my horoscope. And, I still am really active in personalities and reading things and stuff. Like, I'm not Googling up my horoscope, but if I do have a really goofy dream, I do Google that. I will say, I'm kind of keen on that. But I don't put my faith and trust in those things. Obviously, I'm putting my faith and trust in the Word of God and Jesus. But I think it's so important that you understand your personality, that you understand what you bring to the table. And it's not in this realm of self-deprecation. It's not in this realm of, focusing on your weaknesses. You need to figure out what is your gift. You need to know your gift, okay? And that's kind of what we're talking about. And I had the honor of being able to go and a dear friend, another really strong online business owner, leader, asked me to come and speak a few months ago in front of her team. And I'm always so honored whenever that happens. And, I really sat back, and it's so weird, you guys. When I get in those spaces, I really feel the need to bring biblical principles. So today, this is going to be an episode that has a foundation of biblical principles. And I can't really even describe why, other than it is a very real part of who I am. Being a Christian, me and my husband were on staff for a decade at churches. My husband still does online ministry. He's ordained with our denomination. And I just always feel the need to bring the Word of God. I don't know. It's really peculiar. But I always ask permission as well. Hey, would you be are you okay if I pull out biblical principles and apply them in a leadership aspect? And she gave me full permission. And so I brought this message about self-awareness and about you have to know your gift. Okay. And so today, if you feel like you're struggling or you feel like you don't understand your gift, I want to walk through the story of David and show you how powerful his gift was, and how when you know your gift, you become absolutely unstoppable, okay? And, I have to be very honest. I really prayed that God would give me a word as I went and spoke. And for some reason, I kept coming back to the story of David, which really made zero sense to me. I'm not a David girl. If anything, I'm a Moses girl through and through. I'm really not Old Testament driven. But for some reason, I kept coming back to the story, and I realized I've really never read the story of David. I've been saved since I was in middle school, and I've just, you hear about David, there's Goliath, he grabs a stone, makes slingshot, bam, Goliath is dead, one-eyed monster, dead, whatever, right? You hear these things, but I didn't really understand the context. I didn't understand who David was. And so, again, just being a high achieving woman, it's so important that you stay in your lane, that you stay in your strengths. And oftentimes I think we're so busy and we're so consumed trying to hide our strengths. And the funny thing is when you first start operating in your strengths, you're going to do it a little wrong. You're going to do it a little goofy. You're going to not perfect it right away, right? I remember when I first started walking and like discovering my voice and developing my voice and deciding how I wanted to move and what I wanted to say and the verbiage I wanted to use and the vulnerability and the authenticity and the transparency that I wanted to bring my network. And, I pissed some people off when I did that. And I kind of went over the line a little bit. But what's so cool is as you continue to develop your strength, and as I continue to work on that part of me, just like you need to work on those parts of you, I am the woman I am today because of that. And if you want to be a high achieving woman, you have to know what you bring to the table. And there's all those amazing Google memes, like when you know what you bring to the table, you don't have to worry about anybody else, whatever, right? But it really is true. Like there's validation there, and you can rest your hat on that. You can stand firm in that. You can be undeniable in that. You can be unshakable in your gift. And every single one of you under the sound of my voice have a powerful gift on the inside of you. So I do understand that I'm kind of mixing like a little bit of like, business and spirit here. So I'm just going to ask, for grace and permission. Maybe this isn't your cup of tea, but I'm also going to ask, you guys do a phenomenal job of sharing this. If you know someone that is struggling in their gift, they're struggling in their strength, they're struggling in their power, I'm going to ask that you share this with them, because I just want to walk you through, again, the story of David. And if you've never understood it, let me just go ahead and be the first to say that the Bible says twice David was a good looking man. And I said, okay, Lord, like I hear you, boo boo. Okay. But a lot of what I'm reading out of today is 1 Samuel 17 in the Bible. And everyone always asks what Bible I read. I read a New Living Translation. It's literally the only Bible that my brain makes sense of. I don't understand why. But I remember telling my husband, okay, so I need to understand the Bible like a 6-year-old would in Sunday school. So what translation would help me? And then the NLT, the New Living Translation, is what does it. But if you go back to 1 Samuel 16, it says that King Saul, Jesse sent for David when King Saul was trying to make him king, and or Samuel was trying to anoint him. And it says that David, he was dark and handsome with beautiful eyes. Okay, come on, somebody. And then you go on lower in the word, and it says he is also a fine looking young man, and the Lord was with him. Like, okay, come on. Like, listen, the Bible said twice. He was a good looking guy, okay? But so if you don't know about David in 1 Samuel 17, I'm going to really just kind of break down the word without reading it verbatim, just kind of give you an overview, but I would highly recommend that you go and read it yourself. So here's this guy, Jesse. He has a ton of sons and comes out. Samuel is the youngest. He watches the sheep in the field, and Samuel comes and anoints him, and he's going to be the next king. So imagine you find out your calling. Imagine you know exactly what you're supposed to do, and you wake up the next day and the world is the exact same as it was prior to that anointing. And I think a lot of us, we also walk in that. There's a level of faith and trust in our gift. Like we maybe have a desire to, I don't know, be famous on YouTube, or maybe we have a desire to make a difference in our community, or we have a desire to be a speaker. We have a desire to be an author. Like we have these dreams that we feel they're given to us, but then we wake up the next day after discovering it, and it's like our world is the exact same. Our youngest daughter, Gator, just had a birthday, and like she woke up this morning and it was like, oh, it feels the exact same as yesterday, right? And so when it comes to your gift and having that self-awareness, you also have to understand that you're in a process. And so in 1 Samuel 17, David is in his process. He knows that he is going to be king one day. He knows that he's anointed for it, but he is still very real, a shepherd out in the field with the sheep. So chapter 17 opens up and it really starts telling us about Goliath and the Philistine army, and it talks about how the Philistines and the Israelites, there was a valley. Each group stood on top of a hill, and there was a valley in between, and they were just going to battle. And this Goliath emerges out of the Philistines. And it really describes, how big he was, just so you could get this like image in your head. It says he was over 9 feet tall. He wore a bronze helmet. His brawn coat of mail weighed 125 pounds. Okay, he wore a coat that weighed 10 pounds less than I do. Okay. He was also wearing leg armor, a javelin over his shoulder. He had what does it say? He had a spear that was heavy and thick, weaver's beam. I wanted to say beaver's weam. I don't know about that. So he walked, he was a big giant, right? He was this big dude. And it said that he stood and he taunted. So the Philistines are on one hill, the Israelites on the other, and there's this valley in between them. And Goliath stood at the top of his hill, and he basically is saying, "Why are you coming out to fight? I'm the Philistine champion. But you are only the servants of Saul. Choose one man to come down here and fight. And if he kills me, we will be your slaves. But if I kill him, you will be ours." And so now he's coming, he's taunting the Israelites. And it says that David's dad caught wind of this, and David's brothers were with King Saul and the Israelites on that hill. And so Jesse sent for David to go bring his brothers some food. So imagine this again: you have this anointing on you to be king one day, and you just going to bring your brother some food. And so he goes to bring his brother some food. And so it says that, David went the next morning and was going to bring out, and if you hear pages flipping, it's because I've got my Bible right here. So I can give y'all, a little bit of accuracy. Amen. And so he goes to greet his brothers. And when he was talking to them, he noticed that Goliath came out. So this has been going on for a little bit, okay? And he noticed that Goliath came out and started taunting the Israelites, David did. And when Goliath started taunting the Israelites, the army of King Saul, the other men, started kind of freaking out. They kind of started running in fear. And some of the men looked at David and they said, "Have you seen this giant?" And so they start explaining to David who he is. And they say he comes out each day to defy Israel. The king has offered a huge reward to anyone who kills him. He will give the man one of his daughters for a wife, and the man's entire family will be exempt from paying taxes. So random people have come to David and started telling him about this. So David knows, okay, well, whoever beats Goliath, he's not only going to be a hero, but he's going to get one of King Saul's daughters, and his whole family will be exempted from taxes. And so David turns and asks different men in the army, "What will a man get for killing this Philistine and ending his defiance of Israel?" And these men gave David the same reply. So here's two different groups of men. I imagine David looked to his left and asked those guys, and then he looked to his right and asked those guys. And then one of David's brothers heard David asking these questions. And then he started kind of being what big brothers do, right? He said, "What are you doing around here anyways? What about those few sheep you're supposed to be taking care of? I know about your pride and deceit. You just want to see the battle." So here's an older brother doing what older brothers do, taunting his little brother, okay, doing exactly what Goliath is doing to the Israelites. "Hey, what are you doing here? You're just a shepherd, blah, blah, blah." And David responded, "What have I done now? I'm just asking a question." So he walks away and asks another group of men the same question. So now here's three different groups of men that David has asked, "What do you get for defeating Goliath?" And eventually word gets back to King Saul that David is inquiring about killing Goliath. So King Saul sends for him. And David shows up to King Saul and just, because he knows his gift. And he says, "Don't worry about this Philistine. I'll go fight him." And King Saul says, "Don't be ridiculous. There's no way you can fight the Philistine and possibly win. You're just a boy." And he's been a man of war since his youth. So David pushes back and he persists, the Bible says. And he says, "I've been taking care of my father's sheep and goats. When a lion or a bear comes to steal the lamb from the flock, I go after him with a club and rescue the lamb from its mouth. If the animal turns on me, I catch it by the jaw and club it to death. I have done this to both lions and bears, and I'll do it to the pagan Philistine too, for he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the claws of the lion and the bear will rescue me from this Philistine. And so Saul finally consented. Okay, so David stands up for himself. Saul consents. He says, all right, go ahead. May the Lord be with you. And then Saul tries putting on his own, Saul's own army battle gear that he wears. He tries putting it on David. And it says that David took a step or two. He had never worn anything like this before. Remember, David's just used to doing this with a club in his hands, okay? He's never worn battle gear before. And David said, I can't go in these. I'm not used to them. So David took it off, and he said, the Bible says he picked up 5 smooth stones from a stream, put them in his shepherd's bag, and then armed with a shepherd's staff and a sling, he started walking towards the valley. And it comes out, so here's David, small, youngest brother, comes off the hill for the Israelites, starts walking towards that valley to meet Goliath in the middle of the valley. And it says Goliath walked towards him and said, what am I, a dog, that you come at me with a stick? And then he started cursing at David. And he said, come over here, I'll give your flesh to the birds and your flesh to the birds and the wild animals. And we know this part of the story. This is typically where we all pick it up, right? David replies to Goliath, you come at me with a sword and spear and a javelin, but I come at you with the name of the Lord of heaven's armies. The God of Israel is whom you've defied. And today the Lord will conquer you. I will kill you, cut off your head, and I will give your dead bodies to the men and the birds and the wild animals. And the whole world will know the God of Israel. And he said, this is the Lord's battle and he will give you to us. And then it says, David quickly ran to meet Goliath. He reached in the shepherd's bag, took out a stone, hurled it with a sling, hit the Philistine right in the forehead. The stone sank in. Goliath stumbled, fell face to the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine with only a sling and a stone, for he had no sword. Then David ran over, pulled Goliath's own sword from his sheath, and David used it to kill and cut off his head. So that is the story of David, if you had not heard it in its entirety. And when it comes to knowing your gift, there's so many phenomenal nuggets, and I believe that God gave me this word to speak over my friend's team, who she was talking about how powerful your gift is. When you stay in your lane, when you know your gift, you are able to do amazing things. And it's the same thing I want to communicate to you today. So I have 3 different points that I want to share with you and pull out from what David was able to do. The first thing is that David had posture. Okay, when you know your gift, you will bring posture. And this goes back to verse 32 and 33. So David already knows that you're going to get this big reward for killing Goliath. King Saul sends for him, and immediately David says, don't worry about this Philistine. David told Saul, I'll go fight him. And King Saul responds, don't be ridiculous. There's no way you can fight the Philistine and possibly win. You're only a boy, and he's been a man of war since his youth. There is a fine line between ignorance and posture. Ignorance is thinking that you can do something when you don't know what it takes. But what's really cool about David is he already knew what it took, and he persisted in the next verse, in verse 34. He persisted to give examples. He was able to pull off of his history. And I think what's so cool is when you are a high achieving woman and you know your gift, there's number one, there's not only going to be fruit and evidence, but there's going to be a history of it. A lot of times I find women will not step into their gift and their power. And what they're doing is they're on this merry-go-round over and over and over because there's no evolution to their progress. There's a lot that I'm not good at, but there's a lot that I can posture myself in because I have been able to build on my yesterdays. And when you don't prioritize your goals, when you don't prioritize chasing after the dreams that God has put in your heart, when you don't prioritize these things, you have nothing to build upon. Okay. And but David had that. David was not ignorant. He wasn't just stepping out and I think a lot of us as high achievers, if we're not careful, we can step out and overcommit ourselves based on ignorance, based on emotions, and based on hype. This is why hype is very effective. Okay, a lot of us are like, oh, don't live for hype. No, you need hype. Hype is very effective, but hype without substance is not okay. And that's what David had. He had hype. And even his brother, even his brother alluded to it when he said up here, he said, what are you doing here anyways? What about those few sheep you're supposed to? I know your pride and deceit. You just want to see the battle. So there was a level, like there had to be a level of David getting hype over the chase, over the pursuit, over the fight, over the crossing the finish line, over the achievement. There had to be some kind of hype going on in David. Like he got juiced off of that, okay? Anytime I go and get my blood drawn, I'm always like, you sicko. Like you guys get juiced on this on some level, like poking in my arm and watching the blood come out. Like there's someone that like, they love doing that. My sister is a dental hygienist. She like gets some sick like satisfaction off of scraping people's teeth, okay? And so at some point, here is David, who is a high achiever, who gets the job done, who is reliable and dependable, and he gets juiced off of that. He gets juiced off of the chase, okay? But it's not just hype. There's also substance there. Why? Because it says what he persisted to say. When a lion or bear comes to steal the lamb out of the flock, I go after it with a club and rescue the lamb from its mouth. Okay, he's not like taunting the bear. He's not taunting the lion. He's literally going and rescuing it from its mouth. I've done this to lions and bears. If the animal turns on me, I catch it by the jaw and club it to death. Okay, there was a lot of posture that David was able to bring to King Saul when he was basically negotiating for the opportunity to step into the power. And it's because he had substance to his hype. And so you are going to be able to create more opportunity for yourself when you actually start walking, when you develop that substance, when there's fruit on your tree, when the root is so deep. You know, even the Bible says, like, you will know people by their fruit. And so there's going to be a lot of people online right now that just say a big game. Whether you're an online business, whether you're an influencer, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're in a career, it doesn't matter. There's going to be a lot of people that can bring hype. There's going to be a lot of people that can talk, but they will know that you're different based on the fruit on your tree. And that is how you stand out. When you know your gift and you know the depth of it and you know how deep your roots go and you've got history of the fruit being on your tree, you can build and build and build. And there is an evolution there. I think about when I first got onto online business. So prior to being in online business, I, had not only worked in corporate America as a full-time retail manager. I've ran stores of 20 employees. I've ran stores of 80 employees. I've been in like a $2 million store, a $13 million store. And I've also worked on church staff where I oversaw our volunteer and our membership, and I was called the connections director, whatever you want that to mean. Cool. But basically like customer service experience, membership, getting people plugged into ministry based on their gifts. Okay. Like that's where I served. So I served in a very real way where I had to learn skills in order to lead and manage paid employees. And I also developed a level of skill where I had to effectively learn how to lead and manage full-time volunteers. Okay. And those are two different dynamics, because if you think that you can talk to a volunteer the same way you talk to a paid employee or vice versa, like you confused, love, you're confused. So when I first came to online business, I had a lot of experience, and I'll never forget I had the opportunity with some leaders that made more than me. They invited me to leadership Zooms. And so I would show up and I would listen. And, I think it's really important whenever you're like the new kid on the block that you kind of just take a back seat, that you're observant. I think it's important, like you don't want to make the wrong impression. Like there's a time and a place for you to show up and show out. So I had showed up to these meetings for a few months and, offered, obviously I wasn't like going to be silent. Like I felt validated that I could offer information, but I was very mindful of how I did it. And after like the third month, there was this girl that just kept complaining, and she wanted advice, and I was waiting for someone else to step up and offer advice, and no one was. Well, I have had advice. I worked with people for years and years in multiple different capacities. I came, even though I was only 4 months into this online business, I came with a level of expertise, and I could posture myself that way. Just like David did. He was able to posture himself, even though it was a new thing he was getting ready to do. And so I unmuted and I asked permission, like, hey, do you give me permission to speak into this? And she said yes. And I told her things she did not want to hear because she was the problem. And she was trying to blame and not take ownership. And it was really, at the end of the day, she was the issue. She had control over it. And she didn't like the way that I responded. And honestly, a lot of the people on the Zoom didn't. And I was informed that I had only been a part of the company for 4 months and I had no reason to speak up. I had no reason to say the things that I did. And the problem is I wasn't showing up with a level of ignorance. I was showing up with a level of posture. In the business, in their lens, it might have been ignorant because I wasn't as high up in the ranks as this girl. I wasn't making the money she was making. But overall in my life, I was able to posture myself. And what's amazing is from that moment, I'm still here and at the top and none of these girls are, okay? And so it really just goes to show that when you know your gift and and I say that humbly, but I say that nonetheless. But when you know your gift, you have a level of posture where you can stand your ground and you can say, hey, you might not see the fruit on this tree here, but let me tell you about the fruit that's been on my previous trees. You might see me when I'm coming up in spring and baby, my flowers haven't bloomed yet, but let me tell you about last year and how I weathered the storms and how I produced crop and and you have to show up to your gift with a level of posture. And if you don't, people will try to put you in a box. People will try to silence your voice. People will try to underestimate your capacity and your power. And David did not allow that to happen. I mean, King Saul literally responded with him, don't be ridiculous. Don't be ridiculous. There's no way you can fight this Philistine and possibly win. There was so much doubt. There was so much opposition. There was questioning. And a lot of times when there's no evolution to your gift and you don't know your gift, okay, if you are not secure in your gift, if you do not know what you bring to the table, other people's doubts, the environment, the outside world will have inside influence. And this is why it's so important that you posture yourself. And it's so important that you're getting results behind the scenes that no one can see. Because you have to learn how to trust yourself. That's what self-awareness is. Self-awareness is understanding yourself, making progress on yourself, and you have to learn how to trust yourself. You have to learn how to trust your intuition. You have to learn how to trust that gut feeling. You have to learn how to put your trust in yourself that when you set that goal that you know you're going to rise because you have a history of rising to the occasion when you're in a tough spot. And there's a lot of people that don't know their gift. So when it comes to a new goal, they want to aim for the moon or aim for the stars, land on the moon. And you can't do that. Like every other guru out there is going to tell you to do that. Oh, just do it. Just do it. No, if you have a history of failing yourself, how about you just make a micro move? How about we build some trust first? How about we put one foot in front of the other? And I understand, aim for the stars, land on the moon. Okay, but that applies to 1 out of 10,000 people. The majority of people will be at the bottom. There's a reason why our world is shaped like a pyramid. Everything in life is a pyramid. Our family system, the ecosystem, the government, business, everything is a pyramid. Few people make it to the top. And so, how about you just try to get to the next level? And you have to learn to trust yourself and you have to learn how to posture yourself. So when you know your gift, you bring posture, okay? And if you can't bring posture to who you are and what your gift is, then you don't understand your capacity and you haven't gotten enough results for you to trust yourself. If an outside influence says, don't be ridiculous, there's no way you can fight this Philistine. If someone can so easily say, don't be ridiculous, you can't make that online business work. If someone can so easily say, don't be ridiculous, don't go for that promotion, you're never going to get it. Don't be ridiculous. You can't make a difference in our town. Don't be ridiculous. You can't go and make an impact on the world. If an external force can so easily blow you over, you were never serious to begin with. Okay? And as high achieving women, you have to be able to have that posture. So the second thing is when you know your gift, you're not going to be held prisoner. Okay? When you know your gift, it can't hold you prisoner. And this goes to verse 38 and 40. When Saul finally consented, King Saul finally consented, was going to let David go and fight Goliath. And it says, then Saul gave David his own armor. This is where King Saul started putting on his own armor onto David. A bronze helmet, a coat of mail. David put it on, strapped the sword over it, and took a step or two to see what it was like, for he had never worn such things before. David responded, I can't go in these. He protests. That's what it says. It says, I can't go in these. David protested to Saul. I'm not used to them. So David took them off. And here's what he did. He picked up 5 smooth stones from a stream, put them in a shepherd's bag. Then, armed with only a shepherd's staff and a sling, he started across the valley to fight the Philistine. And when you know your gift, you can't be held prisoner. David knew his gift. And as you grow in your gift, you will learn how it works. You will learn how to set it up for success. Okay. And I think what's really cool is David allowed an opportunity to put on this armor battle. He tried it. He took a step or two. He tried to walk in it, but he said, I can't go in these. I'm not used to it. It wasn't for him. It didn't fit him. It's so important that when you know your gift, that you not only stay in your gift, but you don't allow yourself to go outside of it, and you don't allow your gift to be a prisoner for you. So a lot of people, and this is something that I encounter a lot of people think that I'm like a great speaker, and I'm not. Like, I know that I'm good, but I don't think that I'm great. I think that I've got good energy. Like, I'll go for the joke. I'll say what most people won't. I'm unapologetic. Like, I know all of these things about me, but I think a lot of people just think that my gift is like a light switch. Like, oh, at any moment I can do it anyway, and it's going to be effective. And I hear that a lot. I get asked to speak, whether that's just like in a volunteer setting or paid setting. And, sometimes people just message me and they're just like, oh, just bring the fire. Mayfield, just do what you do. Just bring the fire. Just bring the boom. And that's not how my gift works. That's not how my gift works. And a lot of people will not set them up for success when it comes to their gift. They will stay silent, opposed to being offensive. And I think this is really good to note when like boundaries come into place. And this is a whole nother topic, but boundaries are not about other people. Boundaries are about you. And so I had to get to the point where I realized a couple different things. I realized, number one, I'm booked 3 weeks out. I've done a whole episode on this. You're going to have to scroll back. It was before the High Achieving Woman. I think it was when I was Fireball with Ashleigh Mayfield. But I think I'm booked 3 weeks out, something like that. I had to set that in place because my desire to serve, my desire to speak, my desire to pour out, my desire to develop other women is so strong that if I did not create my own boundaries of how my gift can function, I would have been a prisoner. Could you imagine if David had walked out in King Saul's armor, this armor that he is not used to? Could you imagine what would have happened? This huge helmet, this coat of mail. He is used to like fighting bears and lions with his bare hands and a club, okay? But could you imagine if he tried to do it the way that someone else told him how to do it, the way that someone else demanded him to do it? He probably would have died. The story would have been a lot different. You know what I'm saying? But because he stayed true to who he was, he tried it. I'm not saying don't try. I'm not saying don't experiment. But this is where if we are not careful, if we don't know our gift, it will be easy to allow our gift to submit under the pretense and at the altar of people pleasing. And we are not called to do that. My gift, if it makes you uncomfortable, you should ask yourself why. Right? Now, at the end of the day, I have to ask myself, am I being a good steward of my gift? Just because I have this capacity to speak truth and speak boldly, if I want it to be effective, I have to understand, I have to learn how to communicate my message to adjust to multiple different ears because people hear different. Does that make sense? But you have to understand your gift. And so I've had to learn, how do I set up, if I'm someone who loves to develop, I'm someone who values pouring out and serving, I value leading from the front, like how do I need to protect my gift? How do I need to make sure that my gift doesn't hold me prisoner? Well, I've got to put boundaries around it. I got to be 3 weeks out. I have to make sure that like I value when people want me to speak, I ask a lot of questions. I'm like, hey, what do your people need? What direction are you heading in? What questions do you have for me? I want them to pull it out of me. It's not just like, oh, Mayfield, show up and do what Mayfield does, right? Like, no, I want it to be so specific because I can talk in generalities, but if I'm talking to you in a team of 30, a team of 90, a team of 200, I want it to be so specific. I want to be able to serve you, and you know your team best. And so it makes sense that you would set me up for success. And I'm not just going to be this prisoner to this idea that I can show up and my gift can just run rampant. No, it has to function in a certain avenue. And I know how I work best. Okay. I know how I work best. And that's just like really, really important. I have had the opportunity to speak. And one time I was asked to speak on a stage at a conference, and it was like an ask, but it was kind of a tell, like, hey, I think it would be great if you spoke this week, the weekend that we're having the conference. And I think it would be great if you spoke on this topic. And I like kind of sat for a second and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm not a puppet on a string. Like I can't do that because that topic is not my strength. And do I want to get up and talk? Yes, I do. Can I talk about that topic? Yes, I can. But am I the best person to talk about that topic? No. And I had to make sure that I did not allow my eyes to, let me word this right. I want to make sure that I did not allow the fulfillment that my flesh was going to get to hold me prisoner on my gift, because what matters to me more is that I do the job that God has called me to do it. That I say the things, that I speak the way, that I move the way that God has called me to move, and the way that He's designed me. And I had to ask myself, what matters to me more? Fleshly recognition or heavenly recognition, if you're going to put it in terms like that. Because I can go on stage and I can speak on that topic, but I'm not going to be able to serve people in the capacity that they deserve to be served because that's not my strength. That's not where my gift is best. And so I had to make a decision, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to offend the person that asked me. I don't want to make them seem like I don't want to do it. Like I definitely, like, shoot, pass me the microphone, baby. But I can't go on and speak about this. And so I had to kindly decline and say, hey, I am so honored that you asked me. I would love to talk. But if you need someone to talk about I'm probably not the person. But if you would like me to speak and you're wanting to give me an opportunity, I'm really good at B, C, and D. And immediately they responded and picked B. They were like, oh my gosh, yes, I would love it if you could speak on B. That would be even better. And I was able to make sure that my gift didn't hold me prisoner, that this idea of just because I can speak, should I speak? Does that make sense? And a lot of times, this is where people can really not understand that there's a time and a place to do everything, even within your gift. There is a time to make the jokes, and there's a time not to make the jokes. There's a time to be loud and obnoxious, and there's a time not to be loud and obnoxious. And I see so many people, so many high achieving women ruin opportunity because they think, oh, well, this is just who I am and I'm being authentic. And it's a very low level of leadership that they're functioning at, because there truly is a time and a place. There was a time and a place. And I truly believe that's why David put on that armor. It says he put on the armor and he took a step or two to see what it was like, because you have to feel out situations, but he knew his gift and he knew how, if you want this job done, I know how I need to do it. And David was not more consumed with impressing King Saul than getting the job done. And when you this is good. You need to share this with someone, y'all. When you know your gift, You're going to know who are you impressing, what's the job you're trying to get done, and you're not going to allow it to hold you prisoner. So many of you have a greater capacity on the inside of you. There's so much more that you can do, but you set big goals for yourself and you get so consumed with what other people think along the way and how other people want you to do it along the way that you fail to cross your finish line at the end of the day. If David had showed up to Goliath wearing this armor, David would be dead. Some of you, your goals are dying, your dreams are dying because you are allowing your gift to submit to the authority of someone else instead of being able to say, no, that's not how I thrive. No, I don't just show up late last minute and you pull excellence out of me. I know that I literally just had to decline an important Zoom, an important video that I was requested. Okay, I was requested to be on. I just had to decline it. Why? Because it's happening in 4 days and I still don't have an outline. And I'm not rushing the next 72 hours because you failed to give me an outline. I have no idea what we're even talking about. Okay. And so because of that, I just declined. And that probably is going to seem really rude when the person gets the message. And I wasn't like, hey, you suck. You didn't give me an outline. I didn't say that. But like, nope, this needs to get rescheduled. I need a week. If you want my best, you can give me a week. Now, I'm really booked 3 weeks out. But I was bending the rule. But I'm not going to allow my gift to show up prisoner. Gone are the days when I am asked to speak and then things are changed on me or things are, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know my gift. I need to be prepared. Okay. And I know it just seems like, oh, Ashleigh could talk about a lot at any time. Like I can just overflow. Sure, I can with certain topics. But I don't thrive in that. I like bringing my best to the table. I like being cohesive and well thought out. And I'm not going to allow my gift to hold me prisoner. Okay. So whose attention are you seeking? Are you really committed to doing the things you say you're going to do? Or are you allowing your gift to hold you prisoner? Man, this is a really long episode. We got to hurry up. I hope this is good. Like I'm compensating for 2 weeks ago when I didn't record. Amen. All right, let's get to point number 3. And this is the last one. And here's the one that gets most people. Okay. And this is going to be going a little bit about point 2. So what did we say with David? We said, when you know your gift, you bring posture. Okay. When you know your gift, it can't be held prisoner. And when you know your gift, you can't be paralyzed. And y'all know Pastor Mayfield had to come out. Posture, prisoner, paralyzed. Okay. But you cannot be paralyzed when you truly know your gift, when you're truly walking in your calling, when you truly understand what God has called you to do, when you truly understand the dream, when you truly understand your anointing, your gift cannot be paralyzed. And we see that in the Bible. We see that in 1 Samuel 17. Okay. There was 3 different instances where David had people coming after him, where David had people doubting him, where David had people speaking ill things over him, and he was not paralyzed. And some of you, your root needs to go a little bit deeper in what God has called you to do. And that high achieving woman, if you truly want to accomplish the things you want to. So in verse 28, we see that David, he had 3 people coming after him. He had a family member, he had a leader, and he had an enemy. Okay. And so in verse 28, it says David's older brother, Eliab, heard David talking to the men and he was angry. Okay. David's older brother heard David inquiring, what's the prize for killing Goliath? And it says that his older brother was angry. What are you doing around here anyways? He demanded. What about those few sheep you're supposed to be taking care of? I know about your pride and deceit. You just want to see the battle. Here is his brother who, if David had not postured himself and had not learned to not let his gift be a prisoner, if David didn't understand his capacity, he could have been paralyzed by that environment, that outside source, someone who he was bringing food to. David's bringing food to this brother, okay? And his brother is disrespecting him, okay? His brother's making fun of him. But that did not allow David to be paralyzed. Some of you have people that are so close to you that every time they sneeze the wrong way, you get tripped up. And you have to stop letting yourself get paralyzed. Some of you, your family members speak ill of you. Your family members have life happen to them. And you completely get paralyzed. What was I doing? Why am I doing it? You start questioning so much. I'm telling you right now, your family is going to come after you. Okay, your family's going to come after you. Next, it was his leader. And this is where we go back to King Saul. Don't be ridiculous. There's no way you can fight this Philistine and possibly win. His own, like David's following King Saul. Okay, like David's going to be the next king. And this king is speaking defeat over David. Have you ever had someone that you were under their leadership, or maybe it was just someone who you thought was going to speak life over you, but they told you couldn't do it? They told you couldn't do it. And shoot, maybe that's been me. Not saying that I've done it right, okay? But yeah, there's times where I'm like, I don't know if you can do that, okay? How many times have I done that to my kids? How many times have I stifled their growth or their development? Because I was like, yeah, you're not ready for that, right? And that's what King Saul was doing. King Saul called for David. He heard the grumbling. Word got back to King Saul about how many times David was asking the same question over and over and over. And King Saul called for David. And he looks David in the face and says, don't be ridiculous. There's no way you can fight the Philistine and possibly win. Okay? His own leader, the king, spoke defeat over David. But also Goliath. In verse 41, it says, Goliath walked out towards David with a shield bearer ahead of him, sneering in contempt at this ruddy-faced boy. And he said, because you have to remember, David, all he came at Goliath with was 5 stones that was in his bag. So he was carrying a shepherd's bag, and he was armed with a shepherd's staff and a sling. That was it. So he's charging towards Goliath with a shepherd's staff and a sling. And Goliath says, am I a dog? He is taunting David at this point. Am I a dog? He roared at David, that you come at me with a stick? And he cursed David by the names of his God. Come over here and I'll give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals, Goliath yelled. When you start walking in your gift, you cannot be paralyzed by your environment. You cannot be paralyzed by the ignorance of others. You cannot be paralyzed by the limited thinking and the limited capacity that other people have. It is so important. And if you're not careful, and you do not know who you are, I am telling you right now, someone external will come and rob you of what is internal. They will rob your gift. And how much time has gone by that we have allowed outside sources to rob our gift? How much limitation have we put on our gift because of the circumstances and the people around us, because we didn't want to look stupid, because we were afraid to fail, because we didn't want to look cool, because it was our mom, because it was our dad, because it was our leader, because it was our pastor, right? And we allowed this external and it robbed us. I can tell you, when we were going debt-free, I was on the phone with a family member and I was excited. I was like, hey, actually right now we're in April, 4 years ago this month, we went 100% debt free. We paid off $63,801.99 in 6 months. So if you are looking to make an income online, I can help you. But I picked up the phone and called a family member and I was just like, hey, this is what's happening. Oh my gosh. Like we already knew we had I don't even know what it was, $9,000 left. We already knew when we got paid, it was going to happen. And they responded with kind of a snicker and sure, it's just a matter of time before you're back in. That's what they said. Sure, it's just a matter of time before you're back in. They extended their truth onto me. That could have allowed me to be paralyzed. But I'm here to tell you right now, we're still debt free. Okay? So you can't allow your gift to be paralyzed. The things that you're doing in your life, a leader. I've had a leader that at one point who was in my business, who is still in my business, whom I no longer look to as a leader. But when I was on my climb up, they were a leader to me. And they looked at me and they told me that I was running my business wrong because I wasn't doing it the way they wanted me to do it. And since I am a higher income earner, because I did not listen to them, because I was not going to allow them to paralyze my gift, my truth. I was actually in the height of momentum when this was happening. And I remember looking at them being like, this is ridiculous. Are you just jealous that I'm my name is in the spotlight? What is it? Why would you even say this to me? But I could have allowed that to paralyze them because I did respect this person. right? And we do that. And leaders get it wrong. I'm not going to sit here and say that I've never gotten it wrong. I've gotten it wrong a lot. Okay. But I think this is the power in us being self-aware and knowing our gift. And also in self-awareness, we need to learn when is it time to be a leader and when is it time to be a student, because you're always both. You're always both. You're always carrying both hats, right? I think about like Goliath. I think about, if you follow me on Facebook, I talk about Jeremy a lot. Okay. This kid who I go to high school with, Jeremy, starts messaging me like once a year for 3 years, telling me about how I'm scamming people, whatever. I am like at the top of my company. I am a top income earner. I've got like the fruit and the root is evident. It is undeniable what I've been able to accomplish. The mountains I have, and I'm saying this to you humbly. It's for the point of the story, okay? And here comes Jeremy again, messaging me, literally a dissertation I had to do. Like when I went like 5 swipes with my thumb, the Facebook message he sent me, and I still wasn't done. I think I read like the first 2 swipes and I was like, yeah, I'm not even putting this in my brain. It was Goliath taunting me, wah, 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 right? Just saying all this nonsense. And a lot of people, they will allow the outside source to not only paralyze them, but to negate their own truth. To negate their own truth. Man, you be dropping 15 pounds, looking like a snack, and someone's like, oh, but you're still chunky. And now all of a sudden, it derails all that. I can tell you want to know where I'm really bad at this with? Reviews online. I can read like 30 positive reviews that are like 5 out of 5 stars. But that one negative review, I'm like, oh, now I can't buy the product. Like, oh my gosh, what if I die? Like, no, it's nail clippers. Calm down. Nope. What if it slits my throat in half? Nope. What if it cuts an artery? I don't even know. Like, I be making stuff up. Okay. But that's where how many of us operate in that? How many of us let, like Jeremy, and you want to know what's funny about this guy, Jeremy, is that he's like, at the time he wrote me this message, I don't know, I have him blocked now, because I literally have no respect for you if you come at me sideways. But at this time, he was like, him and his baby mama, I went to high school with, God bless them. And he was like a deadbeat dad, wasn't paying child support, didn't have a job. He was so miserable in his life, he was coming after me, okay? Which is usually what happens, right? People, when they project, like when they get angry with you and they say things about you, that is projection. They're projecting onto you. And and with that being said, I had the opportunity to like believe it or not. And I was like, who is this guy? Like, what the heck? And I was grateful that I had enough, I knew my gift. I had enough posture in myself that I didn't allow it to paralyze me. But how many of us allow it to paralyze us? We know we've done great things. We're going 6 months in business. We're 6 months on our weight loss journey. We're 6 months in the relationship. And someone from the outside comes and says one thing, and now it's completely wrecked us. Now, are there times when that is a good thing? Yes, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about David did not allow the size, the intimidation. Goliath came to him with all this crap on him and like an armor bearer out in front of him. He had a loud voice. And let me tell you what, right now, the loudest person in the room is usually the dumbest. Okay. That is a fact. Okay. And I gotta be careful because sometimes I'm the loudest one in the room. But David could have allowed even visually that to paralyze his gift, but he didn't, because he knew his source. He knew his gift. He knew his power. And at the end of the day, he knew whose he was, right? And so what is your gift? I can tell you this right now. Even just reading this, I can tell you that what David knew about himself because of his gift, he knew he was humble. David was very humble. To go before the king and say, I got this, some of y'all think that's arrogance. That is humility. It takes a humble person to stand up and say, I've got the capacity to do it, and I think I'm the person for the job. And some of you are too scared to do that because you think it's arrogance. Baby, someone told you backwards. Someone taught you backwards so you can play small. And it's time to activate that high-achieving woman on the inside of you. So David's gift, he was humble. He was hungry. He was confident. He was an expert. David had grit. David had posture, and he was honest. And I want you to know today that no matter what your gift is, no matter what you're facing, that you have the capacity. And it is time to start stirring as we go into Q2. We're in quarter 2. It is time that you start stirring your gift. It is time that you allow yourself the grace to rise and fall, to be experimental, to try new things, allow those roots to go a little bit deeper, allow yourself to build on the success of Q1 that you had. You had success in some form or fashion. It is time that you exercise your gift. It is time that the Davids on the inside of us, even as high achieving women, and no, I am not talking about no transgender nonsense. I am talking about that high achiever on the inside of us. It is time that we rise up, and it is time that we posture ourselves. It is time that we not allow ourselves to be a prisoner, that we do not serve our gift, that our gift serves us, and our gift was created to serve the Lord. And it is time that we don't allow external force to paralyze our gift. You have the capacity to do great things. Will you give yourself permission? I love you guys. I want to challenge you. Tag me when you share this. Share this with someone that you believe in. Share this with someone that there is greatness on the inside of them. Share this with someone that you want to speak life over them. And we are not here to call you out if you're listening to this, but we are here to call you higher. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you soon.